Welcome to our playground.
Recess the podcast is an eclectic show of organic discussion, imagination, deep conversations, interviews, creativity, intuition, high vibrations, and fun.
Be informed, energized, inspired, and entertained with me, Jamie.
And me, Brian. Ready or not, here we come.
Because we all need to take a break. Hey, Brian, how's it going today?
I'm good, Jamie. How are you?
You know, I'm well, even though I've had a little bit of heavy news, so to speak. Life is happening. Life is happening in the middle of life, you know. It's been, to be real, I got a pretty big car bill that I have to take care of, some repairs, but I'm going to keep my sense of humor, and I was looking forward to this session with you, this recording, so that I can distract myself and play for a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little tired. I had family visit for 4 days, in the area. And so I took them around and did a lot of fun stuff. And went to the Grand Canyon yesterday, and it was like the third or fourth day of a lot of good stuff, but I'm pooped.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, got to recharge those batteries.
I know. I was kind of recharging and turning my bread off while I was doing all that stuff, yet I need to kind of take a vacation from my vacation.
Don't you love that? I need vacation. I always wonder about that when I make vacation plans, which I don't do as often as I should, because for me, every day is a holiday, every meal is a banquet, every formation is a family reunion. Yes.
That's a great way to look at life. You have to really, I don't know. Maybe it just comes naturally, but I think for a lot of people, they would really have to work at that. I know I kind of would sometimes. Not that I'm not in a dour mood or whatever, but it's just like sometimes, you kind of, you're always going through the motions and the routine, and sometimes things don't always feel as special as other times.
Oh, for sure. But there's moments where it doesn't feel special, but I remind myself, today's a holiday. What does that mean? What am I doing on my holiday? Right. And it just helps with the mindset. And I work, but I love what I do. So it's a holiday.
I don't know. That's
good. And I've learned how to play as hard as I work. So that makes it fun too.
No, you've been a good, not that I've taken all that to heart, but you're a good influence to witness in that regard. You do put your boundaries up and you make sure that you do play.
Yeah.
And that's something I could be a little better at.
Well, I just noticed that the more I play, the more I enjoy working. It's one of those really cool things. You hear about all the time. And then, of course, if I'm coaching somebody or talking to them about, we need more work-life balance, harmony, whatever. It doesn't mean that you only work 40 hours a week. Maybe you work 60, but you play. But those other hours of the week, you're playing. And it does give you a chance to step back and go, that can wait till Monday. For now, I'm going to focus on, for me, it'd be skiing, it'd be hanging out in Tahoe, whatever,
Yeah. I actually wrote a mini blog in my Creative Spark Life World community today about it's okay to take a break. And, that's directed at me just as much as it is for everybody else. And
of course.
That's where the ideas come from me, and the refilling of the cup is so important. And yeah, just got to make room for other stuff too, right? If we're always pushing, sometimes that can get a little stale.
Well, it's easy to fall into the lack mentality if we feel like we're playing too much, and it's like, well, the business, especially if we're in our own business, right? And it's like, where's the money coming from? How am I going to pay my bills if nobody shows up? And it's like, now I have too much playtime, And so that's where I think that's a fine line for me anyways, because I'm always in that place of going, nope, the universe has my back. It's abundant. There's more than enough. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. So.
What kind of help are you meaning?
A perfect example is my daughter and her boyfriend are moving out here in a couple weeks. And there was some big repairs and stuff for her car so that they could drive it across country and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And she was telling me about it. And so because I had a particularly good moment in time, I sent her a little bit of cash, and I said, I can't do it all, but here's a little something. And she said, I guess my complaining was my way of asking for help. And I said, I'll tell you what, in the future, let's both make a vow to each other that it's okay to ask for help. And if we can, we will. And if we can't, we won't. So if I didn't have the funds to give her, I would have to tell her I don't have it. And there's no harm, no foul with that. And the whole thing about her being brave enough, or myself being brave enough to ask for help, is important, because I know for me, I became a very independent child very fast. And that's a whole nother story about how that takes place. As a matter of fact, Tatiana and I talk about it in our podcast, Far From the Tree. It's an attachment style, and it's how things are coping mechanisms. So anyways, but there's a thing of becoming too independent. And I was very much at fault for that for many years. And it's destroyed a few really good relationships, because it's like, I don't need you, or I'll do it myself. And then I make a mistake and beat myself up for days and, all that sort of thing, because I was too afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that fine line, right?
Yeah.
We all need it though at times. Oh my gosh. All of us.
Well, I always say I can do a lot of things by myself, but it's so much more fun doing it with people you love and that you enjoy doing it with. So why not include them?
Yeah.
And also, I think there's this agency part. Everybody, especially as adults, you have the right to say yes or no. I'm robbing you of that right by not asking. So.
Yeah.
So I need your help. I need your help, Brian.
Yes.
And I need the audience's help.
Okay.
How risk adverse are you? That's the question for today.
That's so interesting. Let me dial in here and see. I have no idea how I'm going to answer this.
Because it takes a risk to ask for help. You risk rejection.
For sure. And then that can just, depending on where one's comfort level is with themselves, then that can open up another whole can of worms of lack of self-esteem and self-worth and all that kind of stuff. So that's an interesting way to look at that asking for help thing, because there's a lot of underlying parts to that potentially. How risk adverse am I? Well, I mean, this is interesting. If a lot of people, look at my bio and see some of the different things I've done, whether it was the triathlons or riding my bicycle across the country or leaving my family business, that was going all right, into the unknown, or moving to LA without really any plans. I mean, plans, but not, you know what I mean? Just into the unknown. I don't know. I mean, it seems like I'm pretty risk adverse. From my perspective, it was just felt like things I needed to do at that moment in my life. It was like all systems go. I felt led to do those things. And I look at other people who maybe just throw caution to the wind and do stuff. I'm sure they're feeling the same way, but it seems like they might be crossing the line a little bit more than I mean, I feel like when I do make these choices and do these different things that I've done, I still feel like maybe I have a little bit of a backup or a backstop behind me, whatever that means, or it doesn't feel that risk adverse to me.
Well, that's a good way of kind of
I'm babbling, I know, but
no, I think it's great, because what does it mean? Risk means something different to everybody, right? I mean, like, I don't have any insurance companies denying me coverage because I'm taking too many risks, right? I mean, so
yeah.
But I like change, and to me, it's risky to make changes,
Yeah. And so I maybe in some ways I'm a little bit risk adverse, and in other ways, like if I didn't maybe have some of the backstops that I had, or at that moment in my life, enough in the bank to kind of cover my butt for a little while, things didn't work out, I don't know how risk adverse I'd be.
Yeah.
How about you?
I find myself riskier or more willing to take a risk if I feel I have some foundation underneath me, like the funds to do something crazy, or, the ability to be able to move across country the way I did, was pretty risky, but because all of my family's back east and it was just me and I didn't have a home. I spent a year doing what I call my Eat, Pray, Love year. And I mean, it was just, that was pretty risky, but at least I can do my job anywhere. So I was still able to work while I was doing that. So for me, that is something that, I
Gives you
hold as,
cushion a little bit. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's good.
But I do have a little adrenaline junkie in me. I will take calculated risk. I do find myself overthinking it sometimes, and I do have a fear of rejection. So there's some, and that's something I've just been working with most of my life. It's that abandonment issues that, I have. So, anyways, it's that whole feeling of like, if I do this, then I could be rejected for that. And so that's where I can hold myself back from taking certain risks.
Right. Boy, and there's probably a lot of gold in that question for a lot of people, or that awareness. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so interesting. There's a part of me that, it's a whole nother show sometime. Ooh,
You
yeah.
pull one
Yeah.
thread, the whole tapestry starts to unwind.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. No, 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 no.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, I won't even. It's not that I'm afraid to go there. We'll go there some other time, but I'm not even exactly sure where I was headed. But it was a rabbit hole.
I love rabbit holes.
No, I know, I know. Now I've kind of even lost my train of thought.
What do
And now
you, what,
I'm making that up, huh?
well, no, but I mean, for me, we'll go down this rabbit trail since we'll stay on the risk path for
Yeah,
a second. But
yeah.
what do you think is the riskiest thing you ever did?
Oh boy. Hmm. And there again, that would be different in everybody else's mind, right? Um, well, I guess leaving my family business was probably kind of risky. Driving around the US for 6 months in a used RV was kind of risky. Um, all those rides that I went on and training on my bicycle on busy roads, that was probably kind of risky. I got pretty lucky there. Um,
I think being born is risky.
well, yes, yes, and yes, it is. I mean, life, even you can be the most careful person in the world, and something can still happen to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Man.
But you
So
and I
that's
are always talking about, getting out of our comfort zone, stretching and growing and doing something a little different. And that just takes risk. What is it that gave you the push to take the risk?
hmm, I think it was a lot of things in the pot. I mean, probably ego a little bit, probably self-validation. It just depends on what it was, but yeah, ego, self-validation, curiosity, uh, the excitement of trying something new and stepping out of my comfort zone, maybe in a way that I never had before, made me feel alive. Yeah, how about you?
I would say a couple of things. For me to take the risk that I have in this lifetime so far, there has been this feeling inside of me because I'm kinesthetic, this feeling like I'm crawling out of my skin if I don't do it. That's the best way I can describe it. It's just like this energy that just starts pumping and then it starts moving faster and faster. And it almost turns into an obsession where I can't live my life present until I make that change, until I take that risk. That's probably the best way to say it.
That's interesting. I don't know if I feel it like you do, but for me, it's just like it has to be done. It's just like it's a knowing. And I don't know if I feel it in my gut or wherever. I mean, like sometimes intuitive
Hmm.
things come from there, but it's just I am supposed to do this. So I just kind of start to make plans for it or get it in motion. I mean, I've done some silly, no, they're not silly, just I've taken some chances. And when my first book came out in '09, that one that I kind of accidentally wrote, one of the things I did to overcome my fear of speaking, because I was pretty scared of that, terrified, I did a handful of things. I've probably mentioned these before, apologies, but Toastmasters, community college speech courses. I hired a co-host, a person to co-host an internet radio show with me. I took an acting class, and I also made an interactive workshop called An Introduction to Balance based on my book. And I thought I was being clever because it was a way that I wouldn't have to talk the whole time. But I found out later on that it was better this way because the workshop was different every time for me. And so it kept it fresh, and it was really great letting people share. And I think they felt like they got more out of it too. So I created this workshop, and I'd never given it. And I had 5 friends in Reno, Nevada. I invited, and I sat them down, chained into the chair, and said, "All right, you're gonna know." I didn't chain it, but and I did it, this interactive workshop with these 5 people, I felt like they really enjoyed it. So okay, so then I'm putting I'm gonna put a book tour and workshop tour together, and I got on the phone like the next day and got out the map and did this big loop through 6 states, starting in Reno. I had to go across the desert into Utah, and then Colorado and New Mexico and Arizona and California. And I just started calling places like in this little circle. And the first place I called was this little tiny farming community in Utah called Delta, Utah. And I called their chamber of commerce, said, "Do you have any bookstores?" Said, "Well, we're kind of a small town. What are you doing?" Well, I'd like to do a workshop at a book signing." Said, "Well, I'd like to speak at our monthly chamber luncheon." Okay. That was my first stop, my first workshop ever. And it was in the back room of a Mexican restaurant with 9 farmers. And oh my God, I was so effing nervous. But they were nice. They're trying to do this interactive workshop while they're eating. Oh my God.
Would you have them playing musical chairs and then they had to eat
Uh,
the other
uh,
person's food that they
I
said?
don't know, but just they were nice to me, and it was I kind of, that was my introduction. And so then I had like 15 other stops along the way over this like 2.5 weeks. And I felt alive, but I also was terrified. And I mean, driving on the desert to Delta, I was practicing my intro to this workshop and just dialing it down. And oh my God, some of the places there was nobody there. A couple of the centers for spiritual living, there was like maybe 20 people, and they were very kind to me. But geez, I mean, the one in Denver, it was on a Sunday, and there was a Broncos game on, and so I'm there with the owner of the bookstore, and we just chatted the whole time and watched the football game. One other time, 1 or 2 people showed up, so I just did it, but it was freaking humbling. But I at least got my ass out there.
Yeah.
I had 4 boxes of books. I had like 150 books with me. I think I sold 25 the whole trip. I mean, I've even thought about making a movie about it called Lifestyles from a Failed Book Tour. Or no, wait, Life Lessons from a Failed Book Tour or something, or write a book. I don't know, but I'm blah, blah, blah. But I felt like I was supposed to do it.
Yeah. Is the reward, the risk and reward live on the same axes, like yes and no and light and dark and all that sort of thing. So was the reward of the experience worth the risk?
Sure. I mean, it was humbling and it was embarrassing, but it also, I think, probably gave me what did it give me? Oh, it gave me a little bit of confidence. It also probably just made me a little tougher. Gosh. Yeah, I don't know. It's just part of my life experience, right? And it makes me more human, and I can share that story with other people that might, need permission to try something like that themselves. But yeah, it was, yeah.
The thing for me, risk often means initiation. And if the audience isn't familiar what initiation is, it basically is an opportunity to have an experience that awakens something inside of you. And for me, risk does that. And what it does is it helps me meet myself. I get a notice, did I just fall into that old pattern and that I wanted to change? Or did I do it differently this time? Or is there something here that that I'm experiencing. And now my inner wisdom, my great teacher is showing up. For me, that's what risk does. And
You're so good.
it,
That's such a perfect description.
yeah, I mean, and we're afraid of it because we have to meet ourselves.
What's the most risk-averse thing you've ever done?
There's been many. um, the first one that comes to my mind is being pregnant at 18 and choosing to keep her because it went against all odds. And I was lucky that I had some family support, but I mean, that's a tough thing because my entire future changed with that decision. Best decision I did, but it was risky, you know? And yeah, I changed the course of where I could go in my life at that point. I think another one was moving across country.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I think it's risky to get married. I think it's risky to be in a relationship, you know, because you want to meet yourself, have somebody mirror it back to you.
Yeah.
um, but I will say, you know, moving across country was risky in the sense that I didn't have a base, but I have so much support because I belong to such a powerful community. And I have a lot of community out here. And the risk, I'll offer this too as another big risk. Starting my business and announcing it because of my family upbringing, doing anything that is considered taboo to that community is a risk. And I did get rewarded by having a very disappointed family member who made
We're
sure
talking
to
about
tell
a
me,
religious community.
yeah, yeah. And so, you know, that feeling of being rejected by your own parents is not an easy thing.
That's probably the most risk-averse thing you've ever done. I mean, it just depends. I mean, that's the hardest thing to do is to kind of go against maybe what our family wants or yeah. And it
Yeah.
just depends on one's relationship, but yet I think still it's ingrained subconsciously and consciously when we're raised by somebody, we're just taking in all, you know what I mean? That's who
Mhm.
takes care of us, who loves us, who
Mhm.
we're supposed to love. And when they don't agree with something,
Yep. Well, it goes back to the parents are supposedly know better for their children. And I realize I'm going to be controversial because that's probably my role in this podcast.
I'm the diplomatic one. Good cop, bad cop.
Oh, yeah, perfect. But this is where my controversy is. I don't believe that parents know what's best for their children. I believe that parents have their experiences that they are supposed to protect and create a safe environment for their children, but to let their children discover who they are and what they feel they do best. And the parent's job is to nurture that.
I love it. And I can see where I got probably nipped a little bit in the bud. Yeah.
It's all learning.
Yeah.
That was my philosophy, but it was so interesting because when Tatiana was born, I remember thinking very clearly, I'm going to learn from you as much as you learn from me. We are equal, even though I carry the role of parent, and that there was always that fine line between parent and friend as she got older, and the same with my son, you know, and all that. But the mentality was, you're here for your own purpose. Your soul knows what it's coming here to do. I can't pretend to know that because I got to figure out what I'm doing. So how am I supposed, you know, we talk about not living other people's lives. You only have your life to live, but how many parents try and live their kids' lives for them? Oh, I know better. This is what you should do.
That's just usually a recipe for what's the word I'm trying to think of? Just
Disaster? No,
disaster. Well, I
therapy.
mean,
I'm just kidding.
levels, certain levels, sure.
Mhm. And we're all guilty of, you know, our own
Oh,
bad parenting as parents. You know, there's moments where you sit back and you go, God, I wish I'd done that differently. But
yeah.
that's what therapy is for.
Yeah. Wow. Good stuff.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
anyways, I always find for me, risk is something that allows me to not only meet myself and to have a new experience, but I have a chance to I love science. And so I have a chance to play like a grand experiment, I'm going to add this ingredients. I'm going to take the risk of putting in bromide with, whatever, and seeing maybe it'll blow up, maybe it won't. And, I keep going back to in my decision-making process, am I saving lives here? No, I'm taking a risk. If it was a life or death situation, that's a whole nother situation. But, for me, it's like, okay, I said to my kids, I'm only a plane ride away. And that's true. I was flying back and forth for quite a bit when I first moved, so.
Thought provoking.
Good. I hope the audience is able to interact with us a little bit on this, because I'm curious. I mean, I was talking to my son the other day about risk aversion. That's part of why this is even a topic for us. And he came into this world who didn't like a lot of change. Now, his dad and I divorced. There was change. And I think that just anchored in even more for him how he doesn't want to change. He's not as risk averse. He's in a high adrenaline job, but he has a routine. He has he's never left or lived anywhere else but where he lives now, except when he was 2.5. That's when we moved there. But he's been there now for 25 years. And he plans on staying there probably as long as, unless I asked him, I said, would you ever move? He said, only if my job asked me to. So for him, that's perfectly fine. And as a parent, I'm not going to say, well, it's good for you to take risk and go move somewhere else and travel the world and all that. That's my experience.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean it's his. And that's okay.
Yeah. And usually we get in trouble when we try to dictate other people's experiences.
I've been guilty of that. Not necessarily with my kids per se, but I have been guilty of that with some others in my life. So if anybody actually is listening that I've done that, I apologize once again. I'm human.
Yeah. No, I definitely did that with my son a little bit. And he's very independent and very stubborn. And we're good. But there was times when I probably tried to, I don't know if push is the right word, but just plant my way of doing things in some of my comfort zones, tried to push him onto him a little bit and stuff. But he's got his own thing and his own levels of comfort and what he needs to do, just like yourself, me and everybody else.
Yep. Well, life is a risk. We take risk every day, and all we can do is learn from the ones that fail, like book tours or parenting or whatever, and hopefully make a different choice. I mean, I think if we don't learn from the mistakes, then what's the point?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
It's so good to see you. We are out of time, but it's so good to see you, and thank you for this time.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great discussion.
I can't wait to see what our audience shares with us too.
Yeah, I want to hear what risks they've taken and maybe kind of how risk adverse they are. So absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see you in our next podcast.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining Jamie and Brian on Recess, the podcast, the twice-weekly show of eclectic, inspired, and entertaining discussion. Be sure to subscribe as well as share with your friends and spread the good news. It's always appreciated. If you'd like to learn more about Jamie's intuitive coaching services and creative projects, please go to jamiedawn.com. And if you'd like to learn more about Brian and his creative spark world and books, please go to gbrianbenson.com.